Welcome to the deep dive. This is a story that will definitely stay with you. It began on reality television, actually, with a family showcasing what seemed like this perfect, self-sufficient life, almost untouched by modern distractions. But beneath that surface, that carefully curated image, well, pressures were building. And almost a decade later, that world just shattered in a really shocking act of violence. We're going to pull back the curtain today on the devastating case of the Stockdale family. In this deep dive, we'll be drawing from, well, quite a bit. Reality TV segments, police reports, court documents, even the family's own really poignant statements. Our mission really is to trace the events as they unfolded. We'll explore the unique dynamics of their lives and confront those profound, often unanswerable questions that just hang in the air when tragedy strikes like this. We want to move beyond the headlines, try to understand the path of a family that was just, well, forever altered.
And to really set the scene for you, we first met the Stockdales on a show called Wife Swap USA. You might remember it. Originally from the UK, the format was pretty simple but quite effective. Two households, usually with dramatically different lifestyles. They'd swap mothers for 2 weeks. The first week, the swapped mom had to follow all the existing family rules. Then the second week, she got to implement her own. It was a fascinating social experiment, really. Gave you a unique glimpse into different household dynamics. And it certainly provided this extraordinary window into the Stockdales' meticulously constructed world.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What do we know about the Stockdale family? How did they end up on Wife Swap back in 2008?
Well, the story goes that ABC producers were specifically looking for a bluegrass family band. That was the niche. And not just any band, but one that held really strong faith-based traditional values. And they found exactly that with the Stockdales. At the time of the show, you had Mother Kathy, she was 44, Father Tim, 48, and their 4 sons, Calvin, the oldest at 19, Charles was 16, Jacob 15, and the youngest, James, was just 11. They'd made a very conscious decision, moved from a big city to a pretty secluded rural farm. It was in Beach City, Ohio. And their stated intent was very clear. Raise their sons with what they termed wholesome family values, deeply rooted in their faith. Tim worked a full-time job, but Kathy stayed home on the farm, and she homeschooled all the boys.
Right, so this wasn't just like a casual lifestyle choice presented for TV. It was fundamental. It was a deliberate move away from mainstream society. So what did these wholesome family values actually look like day to day? What did that isolation mean for the sons?
It was incredibly structured. I mean, really comprehensive.
Yeah.
Every family on Wife Swap had to provide this detailed list of rules for the incoming mom, right? And Kathy's list was apparently exceptionally detailed. Her children were explicitly banned from watching TV, no video games, no listening to music unless it was parent approved, and dating was absolutely forbidden. There's this famous quote from Jacob, he was 16 then, on the show. He said, "I have never been on a date. There's better ways to find out about girls than dating."
Wow.
Yeah, it really shows you the mindset. This wasn't just about setting boundaries. It was about total control over their exposure to anything outside the family's specific worldview.
That quote from Jacob really does stick with you. It highlights how deeply embedded these rules were. And Kathy herself explained her reasoning, didn't she? Homeschooling was about controlling their character, their education, keeping them away from outside influences, whether other students or even teachers.
Exactly, and daily life reflected that structure. Fines for being late to breakfast.
A fine. Seriously.
Yeah, 25 cents if they didn't arrive within 2 minutes. And there was a token system. Boys earned tokens for chores, which they could then trade for privileges. Even simple things, like listening to a specific family-approved radio show.
It's hard to imagine living like that now. But for them, growing up, that was just normal. That was their reality.
And Kathy's philosophy really drove it home. She stated quite plainly, "Life is not about entertainment and fun. I do not promote a lot of leisure time for the boys." That was her view. She felt every activity needed a focus and a purpose. Why? To stop her sons being, quote, corrupted by meaningless relationships. She believed her stricter way, stricter than her own upbringing, she said, was vital because times had changed.
It sounds like a protective instinct taken to an extreme, maybe.
That's one way to look at it. But you have to wonder, what are the potential psychological impacts? When a child's entire world is so tightly controlled and everything external is framed as possibly corrupting, not as, a chance to learn or grow.
That's a really critical question. Even with the best intentions, that level of sheltering.
Yeah.
Especially for young men figuring things out, it could inadvertently build up enormous internal pressure. It's sort of suggests self-determination isn't really valued, but it wasn't all just rules and restrictions, was it? There was the music.
Right, the music. They were undeniably talented. The boys formed a bluegrass band with their dad, Tim. They played gospel, some comedy too. They competed regularly, performed at festivals, even put out 4 albums.
So that seemed like a positive outlet, something allowed and even encouraged?
Yes, but even that had a specific stated purpose beyond just enjoyment. Tim saw the band as a tool, a way to teach collaboration and also for the kids to earn money. And Kathy managed the band. So again, reinforcing that idea that every single activity, even music, had this structured purpose behind it.
Okay, so that structure permeated everything.
Absolutely. And the true extent of this sheltered life and maybe the pressures it created really came into sharp focus during the wife swap episode itself. The Stockdales swapped with the Tonkovich family.
Right.
And they could not have been more different. The contrast was just stark.
Oh, I remember that part. Lori Tonkovich, the swapped mom, she tried to introduce a bit more freedom, right? Like letting them watch TV or play video games.
Exactly. And it was met with what she described as fierce resistance, particularly from Jacob. Lori later recalled Jacob, who was 15 then, actually running outside crying.
Crying over
Yeah.
TV.
Apparently, yes. He told her his mom and dad would tell him he would burn in hell for experiencing things like that.
Good grief. That's incredibly potent.
Isn't it? It's such a clear early insight into the kind of intense internal pressure Jacob must have been under even back then. It wasn't just about breaking house rules. It felt like it was about eternal damnation, profound fear.
Yeah, that really underscores the stakes within that household.
Wow. And for almost a decade after that show aired, from the outside looking in, things seemed to carry on much the same. The Stockdale family kept up the farm work. They continued performing, winning music competitions. They maintained that public image of a talented, devout family band.
Okay, so we have this picture of their early life, the wife swap era. What happened next? After the cameras left, as the boys got older, were there shifts happening under the surface?
Well, despite that appearance of everything staying the same, things were slowly changing. The sons started to branch out. Calvin and Charles, the 2 older boys, they eventually moved out, left the house, left the area entirely. They officially stepped back from the family band too, though they'd still play with the family when they visited home.
Where did they go?
Calvin went to work at Hillsdale College in Michigan. Charles was in Philadelphia studying to become a doctor. And James, the youngest, he was 21 by 2017, studying business at university. His plan apparently was to eventually manage the family band.
So those are pretty significant steps, right? Moving away, pursuing higher education, careers. It's moving towards individual lives. Away from the farm.
Definitely. It suggests the wider world was starting to beckon even within that tightly controlled system.
Meanwhile, Kathy kept up her online presence, didn't she? Uploading videos to YouTube.
Yeah, she continued posting videos, mostly the boys performing, doing various activities. Her last upload was March 23, 2017. And the band itself, the remaining members, that was Tim, Jacob, James, and a family friend, Joe Steiner, they were still active, still successful. Their schedule for the summer of 2017 was reportedly completely booked up.
So on the surface, things looked like they were progressing, moving forward.
Right. But then there was this small, kind of unsettling detail that emerged later, just weeks before the tragedy. A faint omen, maybe? Something that, looking back, just sends a chill down your spine.
What was that?
It was June 2017. A witness recalled Jacob leaving a musical event early, said he just was not feeling well.
Seems minor, but given what happened next.
Exactly. It's a tiny detail, but it hangs there. And it wasn't long after that faint sign that the appearance of normalcy just completely shattered. What happened on June 15th, 2017, it shocked everyone who knew the family or even just knew of them.
Right. June 15, 2017, the day everything changed. What do we know about what happened?
It started officially at 4:36 p.m. Police got a 911 call from the Stockdale's landline, but it was a hang-up.
A hang-up call. They never found out who made it.
No, it remains unclear who placed that call. When the authorities got to the farm, neighbors immediately flagged them down. They reported hearing gunshots earlier in the day. Quite a few, actually. Between 10 and 12 shots, they thought. Sometime between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m.
So hours before the 911 hang-up.
Yes, hours before. As police approached the house on Dolphin Street, they saw the front door was open. They spotted someone moving inside, and then they heard one single final gunshot.
Oh, my God.
And what they found inside was just horrific.
Yeah.
They discovered 54-year-old Kathy. She was upstairs in a bathroom. And 21-year-old James, he was near a door downstairs. Both were deceased. Gunshot wounds from a 20-gauge shotgun.
Yeah, and Jacob?
And Jacob, who was 25 by then, he was found on the floor. He had a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. He was bleeding heavily but incredibly still alive. The shotgun was right there with him.
And the rest of the family?
Tim, the father, and the two little brothers, Calvin and Charles, they were all away from the house at the time. Police confirmed they had no record of prior calls to the house, no history of trouble reported there. And initially, they had no idea about a motive, just this utterly shocking, devastating scene.
Unbelievable. And Jacob survived that.
He did, but it was a very long road. He was in the hospital for over a year, underwent numerous surgeries, extensive treatment for really severe brain injuries. He lost the sight in his left eye permanently and lived with at least 7 metal fragments still lodged in his head. Just devastating injuries.
And then came the legal process.
Yes. In September 2018, so over a year after the shootings, Jacob was charged with 2 counts of murder. He entered a plea, not guilty by reason of insanity. A grand jury later decided against pursuing the death penalty.
So the question then became about his mental state, his competency to even stand trial, given those injuries.
Exactly. That became the central issue for a long time. In January 2019, his attorney requested a psychological evaluation, and because of the severe brain damage, Jacob was initially found not mentally competent to stand trial.
What does that mean exactly? Not competent.
It's a legal standard. It basically means the court determined at that time he couldn't properly understand the charges against him or assist his lawyers in his own defense. It's about his current state, not his state during the crime. So he was placed in Heartland Behavioral Health Care, which is a secure state psychiatric facility. His assessments there were complex. Reports often yielded different results, largely because the brain damage made evaluations so difficult.
I can only imagine how challenging that whole process was for everyone involved, trying to navigate justice with such profound trauma. And you mentioned he tried to escape while he was at Heartland.
Yes, twice apparently. In November 2019, he tried hiding in some book stacks. Then just a month later, he reportedly tried to sort of blend in with a group of people who were leaving the facility. Both attempts failed.
So the legal proceedings stalled.
They faced numerous delays. The COVID-19 pandemic certainly didn't help. But a major factor was Jacob's reported complete silence during court hearings. It made moving forward incredibly hard. The judge, Frank Forcioni, even spoke about his struggle to ensure a fair trial, saying Jacob really needed to participate to work with his defense team.
So it was a real catch-22 situation. How did they resolve the competency issue?
Eventually, a psychologist, Dr. Erin Archangel Woods, assessed Jacob in person. Hospital rules required that. And Dr. Woods concluded that Jacob was, in fact, clinically sane at the time of the murders.
Clinically sane, meaning?
Meaning that, from a legal perspective, Dr. Woods believed Jacob understood what he was doing and that it was wrong when the crimes occurred. That he wasn't suffering from a severe mental defect or illness at that specific moment that would legally excuse his actions. This was a really crucial finding. It shifted the focus from his ability to stand trial now to his mental state then.
Okay, so that determination, despite his injuries and everything he'd been through, paved the way for the case to move forward. But there was still debate about where he should be, right? Hospital or jail.
Yes, that became the next point of contention. Complex. Stay in a hospital-structured environment for continued care. They worried moving him to jail would cause him to regress, maybe make him unable to participate in his defense again.
But the hospital staff saw it differently.
The Heartland staff suggested his progress actually meant he was stable enough for jail and ready to face trial. So it became this difficult balancing act between his ongoing therapeutic needs and the requirements of the justice system. Ultimately, the court had to decide.
So after all those years of legal battles, medical complexities, what was the final outcome for Jacob?
Well, things moved fairly quickly then. A week before his trial was scheduled to start in May 2021, Jacob, who was 27 by then, he appeared before Judge Forcioni and pleaded guilty.
Guilty, after the insanity plea.
Yes. He pleaded guilty to the murders of his mother, Kathy, and his younger brother, James. As part of the plea agreement, 2 firearm specifications, those are extra charges for using a gun during the crime, they were dismissed.
Wow. And what about the family, his father, his surviving brothers? How did they react?
Their reaction was remarkable, really. At the sentencing hearing, the family decided not to speak personally. Instead, they gave a prepared statement to the chief prosecutor to read. In it, they expressed just profound grief for Kathy and James, of course. They acknowledged that Jacob apparently had no recollection of the events of that day, but they stated he trusts the legal system to do the right thing.
No recollection. Due to the head injury.
That seems to be the implication, yes. But the most striking part was from his brothers. They said, and I'm quoting here, "We love you and forgive you for the role that you had in their deaths. To the degree that we are capable of knowing the hearts of Mom and James, we are convinced that they also forgive you for taking their lives.
That is extraordinary forgiveness.
Isn't it? They explicitly asked the judge for leniency, for the lightest possible sentence. Father Tim also reiterated, "My sons and I continue to love Jacob." It speaks volumes about their faith, their capacity for forgiveness under just horrific circumstances.
That family statement is just incredibly powerful. Forgiveness in the face of that kind of loss. It's hard to comprehend. But despite that plea for leniency, the judge had a decision to make based on the law and the facts presented.
He did. Judge Forzioni sentenced Jacob to 15 years for each murder count, and he ordered those sentences to run consecutively, one after the other.
So a total of 30 years.
30 years to life in prison. The judge mentioned the need to protect the public and also cited the gruesome nature of the crimes. If Jacob serves the full 30 years before becoming eligible for parole, he'll be nearly 60 years old when he could potentially be released.
So the legal chapter closed. But the biggest question, the why, still hangs heavy in the air, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The true reasons, the specific trigger for what happened that day, it remains officially unconfirmed by the court and perhaps unknowable. Jacob himself claims no memory, so we're left piecing things together.
What about Lori Tonkovich, the mom from Wife Swap? Did she offer any insights?
She did speak out after the tragedy. She shared her strong feeling, her belief, really, that the intense strictness and pressures of the Stockdale household pushed Jacob to the extreme. She specifically recalled that incident, Jacob's fear of burning in hell for watching TV or playing a game. She described his life as this very controlled environment where he basically wasn't allowed to do anything that his parents didn't approve of.
That feels like a key perspective, given her unique insight from the show.
Yeah, her conclusion was pretty blunt. She said, "God says gives you free will. They didn't have, weren't allowed to make choices. I just think that it caught up to them." It's speculation, of course, but based on her direct experience inside that home. Ultimately, as the source material notes, what happened inside the Stockdale family home that day will never be fully known.
Oh.
There's been a lot of speculation, rumors, but the devastating impact on everyone involved is undeniable.
And that really is where we have to leave this incredibly tragic and complex story. We've traced the path from a public persona on reality TV, this image of a unique, devout family, to the private devastation, the shocking violence, the long legal aftermath, and ultimately a life sentence. And despite that legal resolution, the deep emotional and psychological questions, they just linger. We're left with such an incomplete picture of the why.
Absolutely. And this deep dive really forces us to think, doesn't it? In a world where parents, families strive so hard to protect their children, how do different ideas about love, about discipline, about freedom, how do they actually shape a young person's development? And what happens when those intentions, even the purest ones, collide with an individual's fundamental need for, self-determination, for engaging with the world? It makes you ask, what unseen pressures might be building inside any system that's incredibly rigid, even one built on the absolute strongest convictions? And how can we possibly recognize the warning signs before they lead to something insurmountable, something devastating? It's a lot to think about.